Rust has always had a reputation for being a very difficult and demanding game that not everyone can get into. It absolutely sucks to see everything you spent hours if not days working up to get washed away in a raid. Some people want to experience the game differently. They want to play in a way that isn't like this. Some people chose to create or move to player versus environment servers where the PvP that causes so much frustration isn't a factor, or in the case of RP servers, is restricted to certain zones. However, this approach tends to drain away a lot of the fun and challenge that the game was designed around. Because of this, PvE and RP servers tend to be very unpopular. Facepunch tried something different. They made a separate game mode called Softcore for us to play on in an attempt to give players an easier experience. However, it ignores major factors that make the game so unbearable in the first place, doesn't go far enough with the factors it does address, and in my opinion, just feels like a half-assed attempt at pretending to care. As a result, softcore servers tend to be unpopular as well. I already made dedicated YouTube videos for each of these topics, but I didn't want to stop there. There are so many things I enjoy about this game, but also so many things that drive me insane. So I took matters into my own hands. In this video, I'm going to share with you the changes to Rust that I made for my server, Chaotic Cottage. I'm going to explain why I made them, how I think they will benefit the experience, and shortcomings I didn't have control over. After I explain everything, I hope you will be interested in playing on it. As just explained, Facepunch didn't really go all the way to make softcore appealing to those who want something laid back. My goal with Chaotic Cottage is to go all the way with it. Take those extra steps to turn the game mode into the welcoming, relaxed, but still fun experience that softcore truly deserves to be. Let's begin with the Reclaim Terminal, the softcore exclusive feature that allows you to reclaim half of your inventory upon dying. I believe there is a massive problem with stopping at only half, which I already explained in my dedicated video about the game mode. However, the reclaim percentage is configurable in the console, so I made it so the reclaim terminal gives back 100% of your inventory. I believe this is a great decision for softcore because it changes the dynamic of PvP in a meaningful way. There is no longer an incentive to just run up and kill people because you don't get their stuff, but the option is still there for when your interests conflict. Say you both want an incoming airdrop. Maybe there's a person hogging Stone Quarry and you want a turn. What if Dome is right between both of your bases and you both depend on the monument to gather scrap and low grade? PvP still serves well as a natural way to settle problems, but no longer creates them when they aren't necessary. Players who would normally stay away from PvP hotspots due to the associated risks will now feel much more emboldened to put themselves out there, resulting in potentially even more PvP than you would have otherwise experienced. The next thing I had to address is raiding. Facepunch did absolutely nothing to confront the obvious issues with casual play that raiding causes when developing softcore. My change to the reclaim terminal makes it even worse. How do you defend from a raid? Yes, you kill the raiders, but you also have to deny them of their explosives, which means you have to be able to loot their bag. Without that, they can just return over and over and keep blowing your base to smithereens. What did I do? How did I address the raiding problem? There's a lot of work to do here, but let's start with this. On the website codefling.com, there's a plugin by Mr. 01 Sam called Raid Protection. At the cost of a configurable resource, this plugin gives you the ability to make your base raid-proof. I made it so at the cost of bone fragments, your base cannot be raided by other players. I believe this is a great first step to toning down the raiding experience. Not having to worry about your base every second of every day gives the player a lot of breathing room to chill the fuck out. You don't have to treat the game like a full-time job in this server. That being said, we can't take away raiding altogether. That's what PvE servers are for. So how do we create space for raiding while also disabling it? Have you ever heard of a Purge server? The premise of a Purge server is that PvP and/or raiding is restricted, but then enabled during a select time period. The benefit of this system is that it gives the players time to prepare for the raid. I made an automated system where every evening, not only is base protection disabled, but so is the reclaim terminal. Now we're getting somewhere, but we're not done. There are still more fundamental consequences of raiding that need to be addressed. For example, what if you're offline? It's not fair to have your base raided at 3 in the morning when you're not even online to protect it. Well, I think the Purge system helps, but doesn't do quite enough. You eventually gotta get off, and you might not have as much time as the attacker. Say you're not even getting raided. Say some dude stays up all night farming excavator for sulfur, but doesn't fuck with anyone during that time. It still puts them at a massive unfair advantage for when you do get online. I decided that the best way to deal with this is to just shut the damn server off. Purge begins at 7 p.m. and ends at 10 p.m. US East. A 3-hour period to raid and loot. Afterwards, the server shuts off. It will then relaunch at 12 p.m. the next day, where base protection and the reclaim terminal are turned back on. This gives players an opportunity to get some goddamn sleep for once, and wake up to a pleasant morning. I think 3 hours is a reasonable enough time period to give players the opportunity to defend. This next edition will likely be the most controversial, but I believe a necessary one. Even with this automated purge system, it does nothing to change the outcome of a raid loss. You still lose everything you work up to, and it still sucks. It also sucks when you're the one raiding and it either fails or doesn't result in profit. This next feature is something I have not seen any other server try out. When Purge begins, it saves a backup of the server. In between the moment when after the server shuts down and before the server starts back up, I restore the server's state to this backup. This creates a scenario where bases get raided during Purge, and after Purge, they come back. Even if you do get raided, it won't matter because everything will be back the next day. This gives you the opportunity to learn from the experience and make adaptations to your base without having to start all over again. It also gives back the boom to those who went raiding themselves. I predict this feature will be controversial because there will be people who ask, what about the attacker? If you're going to spend hours preparing to raid someone, surely you're gonna want to keep the profit from it, right? I think you're looking at it in the wrong way. Have any of you ever got into competitive Pokemon? You know all that time you spend IV breeding, EV training, etc. to make the best possible Pokemon for your team? Imagine if every time you lost a battle you had to give your opponent your team. That would probably turn many of you off to the experience. That's not what happens. You grind it to train up that Pokemon, and now it's yours. You can use it for as many battles as you want. That's what I'm trying to recreate here. Many people are gonna say, that's not real Rust. Well, the whole reason I'm making the server in the first place is because I don't think real Rust is very fun, and I figured this would still be a better system than the other alternatives currently available. However, I do understand the thrill of making a profit. It's fun in its own way. Let's make a compromise. Chaotic Cottage is a weekly server, where on the 1st, 4th, and 7th days of the wipe, I will not revert it back to the pre-purge save. You can keep your profit during purges on those days. I am very proud of these changes to the game I have made and am looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I think these changes will create a wonderful experience overall, but I am aware it will also create issues. There was talk about making an original survival game in the Godot engine instead of making this server, but ultimately I ended up deciding on this path, and that choice has come with consequences. I don't have full creative liberty to fix every problem and have to work within the limitations of what Facepunch and the modding community provides. For one, I would like to have an inventory timer for items to be saved. It's kinda lame that with my system, a player can just sneak up to a crate, loot it, and it's theirs immediately. Ideally, if there are multiple players at rig, they should have to fight it out to decide who gets the locked crate. I wish I could just make it so those items have to be in your inventory for a set period before the reclaim terminal starts saving them, which would deny those really cheesy strats. I guess you'll just have to guard it very well. I also don't like the respawn points at Outpost and Bandit Camp. It creates exploitable methods of cross-mapping. I would like to disable those respawn points, at least during Purge. However, that appears to be hard-coded into Softcore, as I was unable to find any commands to configure it. This last problem I have is a major one, a problem with the server that will have severe consequences for it. In order to bring back rated bases after Purge, I have to create a backup of the most recent save. I then have to archive this save and restore it at a time of my choosing. I have to do this manually. Everything else has an automated system that runs on its own. Despite how long I've searched, there is not a single command or plugin that is currently available that can manipulate saves in the way I've described. The hosting service I'm using to run the server has ways to automate every system I need except for this sequence. It only takes a few clicks of a button to restore the server myself, but it depends on me being at my computer to do it. If I'm ever outside, if there's a Wi-Fi outage, anything that might block my access to the console, I wouldn't be able to restore the server. This is an unsustainable model to run Chaotic Cottage in the long term. I have other projects that take up a lot of my time. I eventually need to work more on those, which means I won't have the time to be constantly checking on the server to make sure it's running properly. I need this system to be automated, just like the others. That is currently not possible. This won't affect any of you playing on the server, but it will greatly affect me as the person running it. I was okay with the server not being perfect so long as my essentials could be achieved. However, this is one of my essentials, and not having it is a major deal breaker. Funny, I always had people telling me, bro, if you don't like vanilla, just make your own server. Now that I'm doing that, I can't even make the server I want. Look, I promised all of you that this server would be created if those videos got views and subscribers. Those videos did get views and subscribers. I will fulfill my end of the deal. However, without a way to automate the save restoration system, there will eventually be a point where I'll have to shut down the server. So let's try out this unique idea while we can.